Hello, I'm Bob Wynn, and welcome to the ProSquared broadcast. The broadcast is our forum to highlight and explore issues, opportunities, and trends relating to sports, business, and society. In keeping with ProSquared's mission, we want our broadcast to be a conduit for learning, engagement, and exploration of opportunities. Our moderator today is Spencer Tillman, a senior analyst at Fox Sports, former Super Bowl champion with the San Francisco 49ers. Spencer Tillman is a former NFL player, having served 2 stints with the Houston Oilers, and in between, he helped the San Francisco 49ers to earn their Super Bowl. He has also served as a team captain, sports broadcaster for CBS College Football Today, NFL Sunday Ticket, and he has held TV analyst positions in New York, Houston, and nationwide on Fox Sports Net. He has spoken at various organizations, including BMW, Sears, and the NCAA. He has authored op-ed pieces for the Wall Street Journal, San Francisco Chronicle, Houston Chronicle, London Times, and several other notable periodicals. Tillman earned a bachelor's degree in journalism in 1986 and a degree in communications in 1988, both from Oklahoma University. He was born in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and lives in Sugar Land, Texas, and his wife and 3 daughters there with him. And now, to introduce our special guest, please welcome our broadcast moderator, Spencer Tillman. Spencer.
Bob, thank you so much for that fantastic introduction. It's probably longer than our interview is going to be, but it was fun. Well done, sir. Well done. Thank you for your vision and what you mean. I can tell you, I'm on tiptoes of anticipation today to be able to sit here and talk and discuss with Lance Kendricks and this group that's part of this call today. Some really cool things. I'll cut to the chase and just get right down to it. I really like what Lance is about because he's a consensus All-American out of Wisconsin University, played for Brett Bielema, one of the great coaches on the collegiate level, or at any level for that matter, because he's got some NFL background as well. A great man. 2011 draftee in the NFL. If I'm not mistaken, this should be year 9 for Lance. Possibly weighing another 10th year to round that thing out, but those are the decisions that we'll get into in the call a little bit as well. Among those 10 years, or the 9 years that he's got registered right now and credited with, they were split, not necessarily equally, but between the Patriots. If I'm not mistaken, you had a little cup of coffee there with them, the Chargers, of course, St. Louis, and then Green Bay Packers. So not equally divided, the bulk of the time with St. Louis/LA Rams. Which is where he really honed his craft and really became the player that he is at that tight end position. So without further ado, Lance, welcome to the call.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Absolutely, man. Good to see your smiling face. And matter of fact, by way of jumping in right into this thing, tell us, this has been an unprecedented year with the COVID-19. You're in year 9, possibly year 10. Where things stand right now with you with respect to free agency? Where's your head?
Well, I'm still working out. My agent hasn't heard anything just yet, but I'm keeping my hopes up that I'll get a call pretty soon. And if I don't get a call, I think I got a couple plans in mind to continue just my career doing other things. So if football it doesn't continue for me, I have some other things that are lined up that I'll enjoy doing post football.
How do you feel like you got to that position, Lance, where you're able to say that? A lot of times if this is 2.3 years, we know how the league goes. You're well past that average right now. So how is it that you arrived to a point where you're comfortable and you appear comfortable and relaxed with things going either way? What was that process like?
Well, I think the first thing is just being consistent throughout my career, being consistent, staying healthy, and making sure that, I knew my job. And, just trying to have success within myself, not trying to do too much and kind of flying under the radar as far as, trying not to create any drama or any issues. But, I was able to maintain a certain level of, intensity on the field. And not only that, but just having that camaraderie in the locker room with the guys, and I think that allowed me to play a lot longer than others. So that I feel like that's one of the big reasons why I'm able to sit here 9 years later and contemplate whether I want to continue playing or retire.
That's between the years, and that's a lot that you just said right there. But one other part that's kind of fundamental to the game is we know that dependability is the greatest ability, right? So if I'm not mistaken, I think you may have missed 1, possibly 2 games due to injury. And that's incredible over a 9-year career. You just don't see that. Can you unpack that a little bit more and kind of give me some sense of where that work ethic came from that allowed you to stay healthy in a sport that's all about getting guys hurt?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think a lot of that started at Wisconsin. Under Brett Bielema, we kind of learned to hone in that killer instinct and unleash it on the field on Saturdays. And I believe personally that carried over for me into the NFL, and just being able to have that mentality of it's either me or you, whether the guy was bigger than me or not. So I had that relentlessness, and it's kind of like you either have it or you don't. And guys that make it to the league, they have it, but in order to continue playing for that long, you got to be able to have it consistently. So I think that consistency really, really helped me, and a lot of that I learned at the college level.
So Lance, you have the benefit a lot of people don't really have, having been essentially with 4 teams. I mean, we can say that the Patriots are kind of a brief period there, but the benefit of perspective actually gives you experience that most people don't really have. Can you compare and contrast what you learned from those respective stops? What's good about it? What's dissimilar about it? What did you learn?
I think I just learned how to adapt. I think that's the main thing. When I was with the Rams for 6 years, and I kind of became comfortable and, in some ways complacent. And once you get that call that, I got a call after my second season on my second contract with the Rams that I was going to be released. I faced kind of a point of adversity where I didn't know, I knew no other team. I knew no other things. I only knew the Rams locker room. So for me, going to a new team was kind of like, going to a new school, or going from middle school to high school. It's just kind of like, all right, it's all new things. It's a new place. It's new people. It's, new food, new community. So we had to really adjust and get used to that. But in order to do that, you have to be able to adapt. So I was able to adapt really quickly. I was able to, luckily, I worked out during the off season with a lot of Packer guys. So I was comfortable coming into the locker room, knowing that I already knew a few guys on the team, and that playbook wasn't too out of sight. It was a little familiar from what the Rams did. So that verbiage kind of translated over pretty well for me. So that helped out a lot.
Yeah, and listen, even though you're with the Rams for the number of years that you were with them, maybe it's kind of like it subtly happens where you get used to that. And you're in an environment, despite how many people tell you that the NFL really stands for not for long, you still get ingrained and get comfortable with that. So now I know that Josh McDaniels was really a key cog in you being drafted there to the Rams. And then eventually you run into him again at Green Bay, if I'm not mistaken. What role did that relationship have? And then how did that make the transition to a new place easier?
So I ran into Josh again in New England, but that offense that we learned with Josh my rookie year with the Rams, it was so complex and difficult to learn that it kind of opened up my eyes to just being able to learn a difficult playbook. So those next few years, I believe we had like 4 different offense coordinators in like 5 or 6 years, and just being able to open your mind up to learn those different offenses, it takes a lot. And not only different offenses, but different quarterbacks, different running backs, just different everything. And being able to adapt to that was challenging, but I kind of always just stayed the course. I'm sorry, what was your original question?
No, I think you're unpacking it right there. I mean, if I could hone it and say anything, you are speaking to one of the 3 contexts in which we learn the most. They say that when we have mentoring relationships, we're thrust into foreign territory, or have a sudden loss. Those are the 3 contexts which we learn the most. Most people tend to steer away from that, but you're in the throes of it. And this call allows us to have bibliography and footnotes so that people can adapt the right mindset, not be fearful of it, but understand you can be on tiptoes of anticipation. Hey, look, I got that pink slip, or I've got the notice, it's coming, or maybe is there a mentor that I can lean on that can help me out? I mean, that's very powerful stuff that you're talking about right now, and just continue to talk about that because that's going to help somebody.
Yeah, I think you know what, I will say that when I was with the Rams, when I first got there, there were 2 or 3 tight ends that really took me in and kind of showed me the ropes. And I would allude a lot of my success to that as well. Just having some guys in the locker room that you can relate to and that can show you how to play the game the right way. And, you know, I would say the most adverse thing that we had to deal with was losing. And we lost a lot, especially my rookie year. We were 2-14, I think. And we finished the year, 2-14, and those coaches, they literally got a plane ticket and bounced right away. So, and we were stuck staying there. So having those teammates that kind of you're able to build a bond with and learn from kind of kept me into it, because I had a lot of things that went on the field and off the field that were kind of hard to balance in football.
So not a lot of great success early, but then you eventually had success. What are some of the key attributes or traits that you notice that championship franchises have?
Consistency, repetition. One thing that always stands out to me, like you said, I was only with the Patriots for a short amount of time, but Bill Belichick, we had a meeting, a team meeting. I want to say it was the first day we got there, and they just came off a Super Bowl win. And Bill was like, you can't cheat the grind. And that was one of the first things he said, and it stuck out to me. He said, what we did last year was what we did last year. We can't – there's that can't carry over. You know, we were Super Bowl champions, but right now we're just a 0-0 team. So you can't cheat the grind. We're going to go out here and grind every day. And that's kind of how I treated my career. You know, every day, you know, I wasn't the biggest tight end or the strongest tight end, but, you know, I tried to use my skills to my advantage. So I tried to use my speed and my elusiveness to my advantage. So I really, really worked on those things. And then, you know, my blocking, like I'm undersized. So I really worked with those bigger, true wide tight ends on blocking. And, you know, it carried over to the game. Not only that, Steven Jackson, he was a big contributor to that, because I remember being in the huddle and he was like, you know, when you block the guy, don't block him one way or block him the other way. Just block him straight up and I'll make you right. And I remember he said that, and then the next play he burst for like a 50-yard touchdown. So just having guys like that in the huddle where you can listen to and learn from, literally in the huddle right before the play, you know, that stuff like that, just, you know, you can't take that for granted. So that was a big help for me.
Isn't it true that few of us reach our full potential with only ourselves to emulate? You got to have somebody to get that bibliography and footnotes from, and that's a powerful example of that. Speaking of not cheating the grind, talk about some of the things that aren't so apparent that tempt us to cheat the grind. I mean, we know the stories of legend. At least people think that NFL players are dealing with temptations at every turn, and to some degree that's possible. But I would argue, being the son of a missionary, I didn't put myself in as many temptation situations as perhaps the legends are out there would think, but it's there. We all know it. I mean, it happens. What are some of the things that tempt you to cheat the grind? Or can tempt to play?
Yeah.
Because I know you're happily married. You got everything going.
No, yeah, for sure. I think friends that you grew up with is one of the biggest things that can lead you in the wrong direction. And, you know, I'm not necessarily speaking about my friends, but just the people you grow up with, you know, they come to college, you guys, you know, you have a good Saturday, you win the game, then you go out with your buddies, you hang out, everything's cool. but when you get into the NFL, it's a little different. I feel like college, there was a target on your back, but in the NFL, the target is different. It's not the same target. It's a different type of target. It's, in college, it's like other students see you out and they high five you and they praise you. But in the league, now you're driving a nice car. Now you're crossing paths with these police officers and different things. And, in a city like St. Louis, where the tension was really high, especially after, I think his name's Eric Gardner, after that whole situation, it's just a different type of target, especially being a black male. So the temptations were to definitely have fun and do other things. But I think kind of in the back of your mind, we always had to like watch out for ourselves and be mindful of who's watching, because we never knew really who was watching. Like, there were times we'd go out and then we kind of get wind that, maybe there was a security guard watching us or something, and, he was reporting back to the team. So we never really knew. So I always try my best to, when I did go out, when I did be in those situations, just having fun and going out and partying, to making sure that I didn't drink too much, or making sure that I wasn't the one driving, or making sure that, we're treating people with respect, because we didn't know who was watching. And I always kind of had that in my mind, which is why I never really got into any real situations with the police or anything like that.
Bill Walsh, who I had a chance to play for at San Francisco, would have loved you, because you articulate some of the things that he used to tell us all the time. He says each one of you is a quarterback on this team, and he was talking about how the quarterback comes to the line of scrimmage, and the first thing they're trying to do is disearn threats by, scanning the front. You can tell, okay, who's most likely to come or not? Was this guy bailing out? Are they rolling a three, single high? What is it that they're trying to do? My job is to disearn the threats. The next thing I got to do is call a play that gives me the best chance to succeed against that threat, and then I've got to execute the play. If they go cover two, that Y seam is right there, it's open for you. So that's the weak part of the field, right? So he used to tell us in those terms, and that's what I hear you talking about. And speaking along those lines of being able to discern the threats that are out there, you told us off camera a little bit about how you're now transitioning and ready to play or another game in the business realm. Talk to us a little bit about the activities that you've been involved in to get you prepared for that next phase.
Honestly, so once the season ended, I really took it upon myself, not knowing that I was contemplating retirement at all, but I really took it on myself to educate myself in the real estate business, or in the real estate game. For a while, I thought about going back to school, but I graduated. I have my undergrad degree. I graduated, but I thought about going back to get my master's. And the more I thought about it, the more I said, a lot of this stuff I can learn on my own. So I just started picking up books. So I picked up a few books on real estate, and then from those books, I kind of had some ideas of what I wanted to do. So I started diving in a little bit further. And so I'm like, okay, this is what I want to do. So I kind of wanted to get more hands-on. So I bought my first rental property a few months ago. So we're kind of going through the gymnastics of, what we need to do to maintain this rental property, how we need to add value to it. Just different things like that. So I think the main thing, and I kind of wish I would have done this a little bit sooner, is just when the off season hits, just start educating yourself on whatever it is you want to do outside the game of football, because at some point it's going to end and you need to be able to transition smoothly to something else. And if not, let's hope that you have enough money saved up to hold you over while you figure that out.
You just mentioned the $64,000 or $1 million question. People talk about money. You played in the league a long time. Who taught you about money and how to manage money, and what role does that play? And you now in year 9 being able to do and contemplate some of these other things.
So I would say nobody really necessarily taught me about money. I majored in economics for about a year in college. And through that, I kind of learned how money works and how banks work and how all that works, and credit. So, I think it was just a matter of me educating myself and me knowing that this game is going to last forever. So let me make sure that with the money I do have, I'm making the right moves. And I would say, I would also want to touch on the fact that a lot of these financial advisors, when you come out, they don't always have your best interests. So it's almost harder to find a good financial advisor than it is to find a good financial advisor. Like, there's not that many really trustworthy ones out there. So you really, really got to do your research and with the banks and all of that to make sure that you're not getting into the wrong, you're not putting your money into the wrong hands.
Mm-hmm. So we're almost finished here. I want to get into the 2-minute drill real quickly so we can get you off the line. But I want to unpack one thing that you talked about there. Part of the work of ProSquare is to be able to create kind of a hub where people can come and learn about that, all the way from high school to middle school to college, and then professionals as well. And you're providing some of the bibliography and footnotes. My mom had this expression, more is caught than taught. People are going to hear you and learn as much about what goes on in the world. And that seems to be what you've done with aplomb to this stage in your career. So I want to talk about some other things about what drives you, okay? Then perhaps a couple of nuggets about being from the Milwaukee area and so forth. So you also shared some nuggets about a seminal moment when you took a knee along with a couple of teammates. And walk us through that process, because I'm really intrigued what the outcome was. Because to me, I heard the piece that you talked about at the end, and I don't want to steal your thunder, but it really speaks to what happens when our actions align with what our core values. There are a lot of people that are moving around in society that don't really know what their core values are. The way I describe it is core values are like roots to trees. If you don't have roots, you fall down. And sometimes these crucible experiences that we have, we only know that they're crucibles when we literally change our behavior or do something different in response to it. And you did something that a lot of people would not do. Unpack that for us and give us the genesis why you took a knee.
Well, I took a knee because I felt like, society has been kind of going in circles. An unarmed Black man gets killed or injured due to police violence, and the crime was a nonviolent crime. When there's a nonviolent crime and there are Black males getting killed, so I felt like taking a knee or sitting was important because it needed to, the awareness needed to be brought to the Green Bay area, and it's hard for guys. It's really hard for guys to sit for that. Like, it's not an easy thing to do, but I'm glad I did it because something really, really great came out of it. The president of the Packers came out and decided to donate $250,000 to underprivileged businesses. And with that $250,000, it was divided into 5 separate entities. So certain guys got to choose where that $50,000 went. And my choice was to a place called the Sherman Phoenix in Milwaukee, about 10 minutes where I grew up. And I thought this business was phenomenal because it allowed entrepreneurs of color to have somewhere to host their businesses and thrive, really, all under one roof. Wow. And that was a business, that was an opportunity that I couldn't pass up. So I was able to get the Packers to donate $50,000 to the Sherman Phoenix. I donated $5,000 of my own money, and then I had the NFL match another $5,000. So in total, we were able to donate $60,000 to the Sherman Phoenix project in Milwaukee on the north side, right off of Fond du Lac. Wow. Right by where I grew up, which is awesome. I think in the near future, I do want to continue to help the city of Milwaukee. I know the job opportunity in Milwaukee, it's not so great. So, I've been kind of brainstorming different ways to maybe help my city and to give back. So that's still in the works. I'm still trying to figure out how I want to give back to Milwaukee. But, in the meantime, I think, having to deal with this again, with the whole thing in Minneapolis, it's unfortunate that we still have to go through this many, many years later. And it seems like the same thing keeps repeating itself and nothing seems to be changing. So I'm hoping that this Minneapolis situation really, really brings enough awareness to it all where we can get more cops to speak up. Yeah. And I think that's really where change will happen, is when other cops say, hey, that's not right. You can't do that. You shouldn't do that. Or, when it is happening, a cop step in and say, hey, get off that guy. Like he's unarmed, he's handcuffed, he's on his stomach, he can't do anything. So I think we need to take, I think more police officers need to hold each other accountable. We as people and as players, especially when we're on the field, if I drop a pass, I'm held accountable, and I hold myself accountable to the highest level. And but we all need to do that in our respective job forces.
Isn't that amazing? I remember when I first got to San Francisco, I was there, came immediately elected a captain. They knew what I'd done in Houston and so forth. And I never will forget this. A guy named Keena Turner, who was working, he was a linebacker, and then he was older in his career. He walked up to me, Lance, and said, and I'd been there like almost 3 months at the time. So the season hadn't started because I went there earlier, right after the season was over with, and signed and as a free agent. And he said, hey, 23, he says, you've been here 3 months and ain't told nobody yet. And I was like, wait a minute, what you talking about? I know I can ball, that's what I was thinking. Well, I'm thinking, how great is it in hindsight? I think that night against Seattle, I think I had like a 91-yard touchdown run when he told me that. And I'm thinking, I can do it, but I was on every friggin' special teams there was out there, right? And I was trying to pace myself, and I was coming in on third downs, doing some cool things. But the bottom line was he felt like he had permission to challenge me, which is what any teammate would do in that situation. If you've got a championship lineage program, they have liberty and license to challenge you. And that's something I don't think that we've done effectively enough in the African-American community, to be able to challenge ourselves in key areas that matter most. So let me just ask one more question, then we're done. Any advice for ProSquared out there when you're talking about athletes and you got your finger on the pulse because you're in it now? What should we be talking about? What things can ProSquared do to help support athletes in their trek as they try to become all that they can possibly be as human beings?
I think continue to just network and meet different people from different backgrounds, and just have people tell their story, kind of like myself. I think this is an awesome way to get different perspectives of people that grow up in different cities and different areas, and how they came about and how they, I lost my word, made it to the top, so to speak. Yeah. And I think it's important to do that. I think it's important for people to tell their story and to be able to speak out, and so we all can understand what it took to make it here. And, it wasn't easy for me, especially like I went to a public school. I went to King. I went to public school in Milwaukee, and, those King, Riverside, those schools, we don't really get recruited for football, especially from these D1 schools. So grades are important. They're so important. And, I went to high school with so many guys who were so talented, who could have been in the NBA, NFL, whatever, who didn't have the grades. And it's like, why sell yourself short? Why? Get, just if you need a tutor, get a tutor, or whatever it may be. So I think financial literacy and just the education of it all is so important. And it's only going to help you. The more you educate yourself, the more longevity you're going to have in your career and post-career on whatever you want to do. So.
Well, they say that when players come along, they tend to fit in particular categories. One is fast, athletic, like Lance Kendricks was. He was a triple jumper at one point in time, if you can imagine that, tight end. But, we tend to put them in particular categories. Again, fast, they can catch the ball, do whatever it is that they do. But this young man does not really fit into a category. He creates one. And I think ProSquared is better off for having had an opportunity to sit down and listen to the bibliography and footnotes that he's provided for us. And we look forward to any decision that you make being a positive one in the years to come and in the immediate future as well. So congratulations for all your success, and that is to come as well.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You bet.
Thanks, Thank you very much, Lance.
Yeah, no problem.
You do have an inspiring story, and I had forgotten about your experience taking that knee, and standing up for what you believe in, and it really did yield some great results for many different deserving people. So with that, we really do thank you.